You open the trading app one last time before bed, just to check. Maybe Bitcoin bounced back. Maybe your options closed in the green. Maybe this time, things turned around. But deep down, you already know the truth. You've checked this chart 10 times in the last hour. It hasn't changed. And still, you tap, scroll, zoom. You're not checking the market. You're checking hope. This is how it starts for most people. Not with greed, not with ambition, but with a sense of control. A feeling that you can outsmart the game, that your research, your strategy, your patience, they give you the edge. You believe that if you're just disciplined enough, you'll win. But what you don't see, what nobody sees at first, is that the market is never just numbers and candles. It's a mirror. It reflects your fear, your ego, your need to feel in control of something when the rest of life feels like chaos. And that's exactly why trading becomes so addictive. Not because of the money, but because of the illusion. The illusion that you're in charge. The illusion that this trade will fix everything. That this win will make up for the last 10 losses. That you can finally silence the voice in your head that whispers, "You're falling behind." So you chase. You sit through red candles refreshing with a sick feeling in your gut. You average down, even when you know you shouldn't. You go all in because you have to believe there's a way out. But the charts, they don't care. They never did. And the worst part? You don't tell anyone. Because deep down, you're ashamed. Ashamed that you turned your rant into a position. Ashamed that your savings disappeared in a weekend. Ashamed that this thing you thought made you smart now makes you feel small. But you're not alone. This isn't about one bad trade. It's about the system that feeds on your attention, your insecurity, and your silence. At some point, it stops being about the money. Not because you've made enough, but because the feeling takes over. You win $50 on a trade, and your heart races. You lose $500 the next day, and your brain whispers, double down, you'll get it back. And you listen, not because it makes sense, but because the cycle is now hardwired into your brain. This is not a market. This is a slot machine with a chart. Every trade becomes a hit of dopamine. Win or lose. The anticipation, the risk, the almost, even staring at a chart is stimulating now. Your brain doesn't care whether the candle is red or green. It only cares that you're watching. You tell yourself you're in control. You've got rules, stop losses, a plan. But the truth, you've violated those rules 100 times. You've moved your stop. You've revenge traded. You've held through crashes because you didn't want to be wrong. You're not trading anymore. You're reacting. You've become a passenger in your own decision-making. Every "I'll just watch this one" turns into, "How did I end up in this trade?" And the worst part? You've learned just enough to sound smart, to rationalize the behavior. You say things like bullish divergence and liquidity grab. But deep down, you know it's not analysis anymore. It's addiction in a suit. And you start to feel it in your body. You get anxious before opening your app. You wake up in the middle of the night to check a position. You skip meals, skip calls, skip sleep, because you can't miss a move. You can't miss the move. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. The market doesn't reward obsession. It punishes it. At first, trading feels like liberation. No boss, no clock, no ceiling, just you and the markets. You tell people you're chasing financial freedom, but if you're honest, you're not free. You're more trapped than ever. Because freedom isn't looking at charts all day. It's not refreshing P&L every 10 seconds. It's not living or dying by a candle wick. You used to take breaks. Now you take trades. You used to have hobbies. Now you have watch lists. You tell yourself this is temporary, a grind now for peace later. But days become weeks, and weeks become months, and you start to forget what peace felt like. Your world shrinks. No one around you understands what you do anymore.
They ask, "So how's work?" And you say, "It's volatile." Because how else do you explain this madness? You're chasing wins, but losing time. You win $300 on a trade, but miss your friend's wedding because you were glued to your phone. You gain 15% this month, but haven't seen your parents in 3. You say this is all part of the journey, that one day the sacrifices will make sense. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The market never tells you when to stop. There's no finish line, no bell that rings when you've made it. So you keep going and going and going until your identity is built around this constant chase. You don't know who you are without it. You don't want to know. But deep down, you can feel the tension, the part of you that's tired, that misses silence, that wants to breathe without thinking about charts. That voice is still there, buried under tickers and trend lines.
You finally land a huge trade, the one you've been waiting for. It shoots up, your screen turns green, your heart races. This is it. This is what it's all for. But then something strange happens. You're not happy. Not really. Maybe for a minute, maybe 2. But then the high fades and the silence returns. You check your balance. It's higher, but you feel emptier because the goalpost moved again. Now that you've made $5,000, you think, why not 10K? Why not 50K? You tell yourself it's ambition, but it's not. It's fear. Fear of stopping. Fear of being left behind. Fear of facing life without the charts. So, you trade again, and again, and again. Not because you need to, but because you don't know what else to do. Soon, winning becomes dull. Losing becomes devastating, and your sense of self is tied to numbers you can't control. You used to trade for freedom. Now you trade for dopamine. You're not managing risk anymore. You're managing withdrawals. Every moment away from the screen feels like a risk. You stop going out. You eat in front of the monitor. You dream about setups. You wake up and check futures before checking in on your own life. It's not about greed. It's about the loop. Win, dopamine. Loss, shame. Repeat. You become your own casino, a dealer and a customer in the same brain. You've convinced yourself you're rational, in control, but you're running on emotion, habit, fear. The market isn't just something you look at. It's something you're inside of. And slowly, the thing that was supposed to build your life is becoming the thing that consumes it. At some point, it stops being about money altogether. It becomes about control, mastering chaos, taming something bigger than you, or at least pretending you can. You stare at candles like they're tarot cards, zoom in, zoom out, draw lines, erase them. Look for meaning where there might be none. You tell yourself you have a strategy, but really you're just craving certainty in an uncertain world. You think, if I can predict this, maybe I can fix everything else too. My career, my relationships, my self-worth. The charts become a mirror, reflecting every insecurity, every fear, every false belief. You think the more you trade, the more control you'll gain. But the opposite happens. The market doesn't care about you. It doesn't care if you win. It doesn't care if you need this to work. And every loss feels like a personal insult. How could this happen? I was so sure. So you double down. You add indicators. You buy new courses. You search for the one thing that will finally make you bulletproof. But the truth is, it's not about knowledge, it's about acceptance. The more you try to force the outcome, the more the market humbles you. You thought trading would give you power, but now it's a ritual, a religion, a desperate plea for clarity in a world that won't stop moving. And the worst part? You know all of this. You're self-aware, but you still can't stop. because it's not the market you're trying to beat.
Your portfolio isn't the only thing bleeding red. It's your time, your energy, your peace. You miss calls, ignore texts, let messages rot unread because the market might move. You say no to plans. Not tonight, not now, just one more hour, which turns into 4. You promise you'll stop after this trade, but you never do. You don't talk to people the same anymore. They mention their day, their dreams, their fears, and all you can think about is whether BTC will bounce its support. You start to isolate, not because you want to, but because no one else understands. They think it's just numbers, just risk, just a phase. But to you, it's everything. It's validation. It's hope. It's the only place where you feel like you matter. You sleep worse, eat worse, you snap faster, you zone out mid-conversation, replaying that one stupid trade that ruined your day. Your screen time is through the roof. Not from scrolling TikTok, but from trying to outsmart a system that's designed to beat you. You're not lazy. You're exhausted. Because you're fighting a war, and the enemy lives in your own head. The market has become your abusive partner. It gives you hope, then rips it away. It whispers, "Come back. Maybe this time it'll be different." And you listen, every time. Because walking away would mean admitting it got to you, that you were never in control, that it was never about skill, just luck, dopamine, and denial. And still, you convince yourself, one more win and I'll quit. But you said that yesterday, and the day before, and you'll say it again tomorrow.
You tell yourself you'll stop, that you'll walk away once you make it back, once you break even, once the market turns around. But it never does, at least not in the way you need it to. You stay, because leaving now would mean all the losses meant nothing, that you wasted time, that you lost control, that you were never really in the game, just chasing ghosts across a screen. But here's the truth no one tells you. You can leave, and it can still mean something. It can mean you've grown, that you've seen the cycle, that you finally understood the cost of playing a game that was never fair. It takes more strength to close the tab than to hold on to a losing trade. It takes more courage to log off than to open another chart. And it takes real clarity to admit, I'm not okay. Because healing doesn't happen while staring at candles. It happens in quiet moments, in messy conversations, in long walks, in rediscovering who you are without the green and red. You thought trading made you powerful, but it made you numb. It made you dependent. It gave you just enough dopamine to stay broken. And now, it's time to feel again. To be bored. To be still. To be human. You're not weak for stepping away. You're not a failure for needing space. You're someone who's been hurt and decided not to bleed forever. The chart will still be here, but you don't have to be. Close the tab, not because you lost, but because you finally understood what winning really means.